The city never sleeps. It hums with the restless energy of a million lives moving at once, laughter spilling from restaurants, the rhythmic tapping of hurried footsteps, the occasional blare of a car horn slicing through the night air. But beneath the neon lights and the towering buildings, in the places no one bothers to look, there exist those who have been forgotten. Liam knew this better than anyone. He sat curled up against the brick wall of an alley, knees drawn to his chest, eyes fixed on the flickering street lamp overhead. The cold bit through his thin hoodie, but he had learned long ago that warmth was a luxury, not a necessity. His fingers absent-mindedly traced the frayed edges of his sleeves as he listened to the distant sounds of the city, sounds that made him feel like a ghost, drifting through a world that never noticed him. A soft shuffle of feet pulled him from his thoughts. Sofia appeared at the entrance of the alley, her expression unreadable beneath the dim light. "I found something," she murmured, stepping closer. She held out a half-eaten sandwich, slightly crushed but still edible. Liam hesitated, his stomach twisting with hunger, but he had learned not to show weakness. "Where?" he asked, his voice steady. "Calf down the street." The guy left it on the table and walked off. "Thought I'd grab it before someone else did." Liam took the sandwich, tearing it in half before handing a piece back to her. "You need it more than I do," she said, shaking her head. "Just take it," he insisted, his tone leaving no room for argument. She sighed but accepted the food, sitting beside him. They ate in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. From the shadows, a smaller figure emerged, Noah, no older than 6, his wide eyes darting between them. His clothes were too big for his tiny frame, the sleeves of his sweater covering his hands like oversized mittens. "Is there any left?" he asked, hesitant. Liam reached into his pocket and pulled out the crust he had saved, handing it over without a word. Noah's face lit up with gratitude as he nibbled on the bread. Mateo arrived moments later, shaking out his damp hoodie. "It's gonna rain," he announced, glancing up at the darkening sky. "We need to find better cover." Sofia wiped her hands on her jean. "Same spot as last night?" Liam nodded. "It'll do." Together, the four of them moved through the maze of alleyways, avoiding the main streets where the wrong kind of attention could mean trouble. They had survived this way for months, watching each other's backs, sharing whatever they could scavenge, and staying one step ahead of the dangers that lurked in the shadows. But tonight, something felt different. There was an unease in the air, a weight pressing down on Liam's chest that he couldn't shake, and he would soon find out why. The air had changed. Liam felt it before he could explain it. The city always carried a certain weight, an unseen pressure that pressed against his ribs, but tonight was different. The wind had picked up, carrying the scent of rain and something else, something heavier, something foreboding. Noah clung to Sofia's side as they moved through the narrow backstreets, his small fingers wrapped around the fabric of her hoodie. Mateo walked ahead, his gaze darting between the alleyways, always alert. Liam brought up the rear, every step measured, every movement calculated. They were heading toward the Hollow, an abandoned loading dock behind an old warehouse. It wasn't much, just a covered space with a few discarded crates, but it kept them dry and hidden from the wrong eyes. "We need to be quick," Sofia muttered. "It's gonna start any minute." The first raindrop hit Noah's cheek, and he let out a small gasp. Within seconds, the drizzle turned into a downpour, drumming against the pavement like 1,000 hurried footsteps. "Come on," Mateo shouted over the rain. They ran. The wind howled through the empty streets, making the city feel like a living thing, watching, waiting. By the time they reached the Hollow, their clothes were soaked, their breaths ragged. Sofia pulled Noah close, rubbing his arms to keep him warm. Liam shook out his hoodie, wringing water from the sleeves. "It's getting colder," Mateo muttered, running a hand through his damp curls. "We can't keep doing this. Winter's coming." Liam leaned against the metal wall of the warehouse, staring out at the rain. "I know." They had survived the summer, but the cold was different. The cold didn't just make you uncomfortable, it made you weak. It made you desperate, and desperation led to bad decisions. A sudden noise cut through the storm, a sharp, metallic clatter from the other side of the dock. Liam froze. Sofia met his gaze, her expression tense. They weren't alone. Mateo grabbed a rusted pipe from the ground, gripping it tightly. Liam motioned for everyone to stay silent. Then, a voice. Low, rough. You kids picked the wrong place. From the shadows, a figure stepped forward. He was older, maybe 18 or 19, with a scar running down the side of his jaw. His clothes were worn but layered too many jackets, too many pockets. He wasn't homeless. He was a runner, one of the street kids who worked for the gangs, delivering packages and doing whatever dirty work was needed. Behind him, two others emerged. One was short and stocky, the other thin as a wire, both watching with unreadable expressions. Liam's pulse quickened. They weren't here by accident. The scarred one took a slow step forward, his boots splashing in the puddles. This spot belongs to us. Sofia tightened her grip on Noah. Mateo adjusted his hold on the pipe. Liam didn't move. He met the older boy's gaze, refusing to back down. "We didn't know," he said, keeping his voice steady. "We'll leave." Scar shook his head, clicking his tongue. Too late for that. Liam's stomach twisted. This wasn't about the spot. This was about control. The gangs didn't like strays running loose. If you weren't with them, you were against them. And if you were against them, you were a problem. The thin one cracked his knuckles. "You kids are fast, right? Smart?" Liam didn't answer. Scar smirked. "We got work. Could use some new hands." Sofia's jaw tightened. "We're not interested." The stocky one laughed. "You don't got a choice." Mateo shifted beside Liam. This was about to go bad. Liam knew how these situations played out. You either joined or you got made an example of. His mind raced. 4 against 3. We were smaller, but faster. If they ran now, they might have a chance. Scar moved first. He lunged for Noah. Sofia shoved the boy behind her, stepping into Scar's path, but he was bigger, stronger. His hand closed around her wrist, yanking her forward. Liam reacted on instinct. He drove his elbow into Scar's ribs, twisting away just as Mateo swung the pipe. The metal crashed into the stocky one's leg, sending him stumbling back with a curse. "No, run," Sofia screamed. The little boy bolted into the rain, disappearing into the maze of alleys. Scar snarled, recovering fast. His fist collided with Liam's jaw, sending him reeling backward. Stars exploded behind his eyes. Mateo swung again, but the thin one dodged, grabbing the pipe and yanking it from his hands before slamming him into the wall. Sofia kicked at Scar's shin, twisting free from his grip. Liam barely had time to react before Scar came at him again, faster this time, angrier. A shout rang through the storm. "Oi, get the hell out of here." A new figure burst onto the scene, a woman, older than any of them, wearing a heavy coat and a look of absolute fury. She held a metal crowbar, brandishing it like she knew how to use it. The gang kids hesitated. Scar wiped the corner of his mouth, eyes narrowing. "This ain't over," he spat. And just like that, they melted into the night, vanishing as quickly as they had appeared. Liam let out a breath, his jaw throbbing. The woman turned to them. "You kids are damn lucky," she muttered, shaking her head. "Come with me." "Now," Sofia hesitated. "Who are you?" The woman sighed, lowering the crowbar. "Name's Elena. And if you want to make it through the winter, you better follow me." Liam exchanged glances with the others. They didn't trust strangers, but staying meant dying. He made the choice. "Let's go." And with that, they stepped out of the rain toward something unknown, something terrifying, but maybe, just maybe, toward something better. The rain had eased, but the cold lingered, seeping into their bones as they followed Elena through the twisting back streets of the city. She moved fast, barely glancing back to see if they were keeping up. Liam's jaw still throbbed where Scar had hit him, but he ignored it. His focus was on the woman leading them. She was different. Most adults ignored kids like them. Some looked through them like they weren't even there. Others saw them as nuisances, pests that didn't belong. But Elena had intervened. She had risked something. That made her dangerous, but maybe also worth listening to. "Where are we going?" Sofia asked, pulling Noah closer to her side. Elena didn't answer immediately. She turned a corner, leading them down a narrow alley where a rusted fire escape clung to the side of an old brick building. The windows were dark. The streetlights barely reached this part of the city. It felt forgotten. Finally, she stopped in front of a heavy metal door. "This is it," she said, digging a key from her pocket. Liam stiffened. A locked door. That meant walls. That meant being trapped. Elena must have sensed his hesitation because she sighed, glancing over her shoulder. You got a choice, kid. You walk away or you come inside. But I ain't standing here all night waiting for you to decide. Liam hesitated. He felt Mateo's stare on him. He knew what the other boy was thinking. Could they trust her? Sofia spoke first. We're not leaving Noah out here in the cold. That was the deciding factor. Liam nodded once. Fine, but if this is a trap, I swear, Elena snorted. If it was a trap, you'd already be in it. She pushed open the door and stepped inside. One by one, they followed. A place that isn't home. The inside was warmer than the streets, but not by much. The air smelled like old wood and something faintly metallic, like rust or dried paint. The room they entered wasn't a home, not really. It looked like a workshop or maybe an old storage room. Shelves lined the walls, filled with boxes and tools. A small heater in the corner hummed softly, barely cutting through the chill. Against the far wall sat a faded couch with a blanket thrown over it. Noah's eyes darted around, his small hands clutching at Sofia's hoodie. Mateo frowned. What is this place? Elena shrugged off her coat, tossing it onto a chair. Mine. Liam crossed his arms. You live here? More or less. She grabbed a tin from one of the shelves, popping the lid open. Inside were granola bars, slightly crumbled, but still food. She tossed one to each of them. Liam caught his, but didn't eat it. Food meant debt, and debt meant danger. Noah, however, wasted no time. He tore into his bar like he hadn't eaten in days, which Liam realized he probably hadn't. Elena watched them with something close to amusement. Relax. I ain't poisoning you. Sofia sat on the edge of the couch, pulling Noah into her lap. Why did you help us? Elena leaned against the table, arms crossed. Cause I know. What happens to kids like you when you don't got options? Her gaze flicked to Liam. She knew. Liam's jaw clenched. We can take care of ourselves. She let out a dry laugh. Yeah, that's why Scar had you bleeding in the rain. Mateo stiffened. Liam felt a flash of heat in his chest, but he pushed it down. Getting angry wouldn't help. Elena exhaled, rubbing a hand down her face. Look, I ain't your mom. I ain't your savior. But I know what's coming. The streets are getting worse. Cops don't care. Gangs are expanding. If you keep running like this, it's only a matter of time before you either freeze, starve, or end up working for guys like Scar. Sofia's grip on Noah tightened. Mateo's gaze dropped to the floor. Liam said nothing because she wasn't wrong. Elena pushed off the table. I ain't telling you to stay, but I'm offering something. A roof, some food, a chance to figure out your next move before it's made for you. Silence. It was Mateo who finally broke it. What do you want in return? Elena smirked. Smart question. She walked to the shelf, grabbed a flashlight, and tossed it at him. I run jobs, little things, deliveries, fixing things up around the city. Nothing illegal, nothing that gets you locked up. You help out, you eat, you don't, you leave. Liam turned the flashlight over in his hands. Work for shelter, better than work for a gang. Still, there were risks. Sofia looked at Liam. What do you think? Elena raised a brow. Oh, so he's the leader? Liam ignored that. He studied Sofia, then Mateo, then Noah, small, fragile, still trusting. They needed this. He took a slow breath, made the choice. We stay, he said. For now. Elena grinned. Good. 'Cause you start tomorrow. The storm before the storm. Later that night, when the others were sleeping, Liam sat near the door, listening to the city outside. Elena moved around the workshop, checking locks, muttering to herself. When she finally noticed him watching, she leaned against the table, arms crossed. Something on your mind, kid? Liam hesitated. Then, why do you care? Elena was silent for a long moment. Then she reached into her pocket, pulling out something small. She tossed it to him. Liam caught it. A dog tag. Old, faded. The name was nearly worn off. Elena tapped her chest. I was you. Once understanding settled deep in Liam's stomach, she didn't wait for a response. Just turned, flicked off the light, and left him sitting in the dark. Liam turned the dog tag over in his fingers. The past didn't define you, but sometimes it left marks that never faded. Liam woke to the scent of damp wood and the distant murmur of the city beyond the metal door. For a split second, he forgot where he was, forgot the cold streets, the gang that had almost claimed them, and the strange woman who had taken them in. Then he heard Elena's voice. Up and at it, kids. You wanted a roof? Time to earn it. Noah stirred beside Sofia, rubbing his tired eyes. Mateo groaned, burying his face in the thin blanket he had claimed. Liam sat up slowly, his body aching from months of sleeping on concrete. Elena stood by the workbench, arms crossed, looking unimpressed. She tossed a bundle of clothes onto the couch. Change into these. You walk around in rags, people notice. You want to stay invisible. You blend in. Sofia picked up a hoodie, inspecting it. Where'd you get these? Elena smirked. Let's just say I know how to find things. Liam didn't ask more. Some questions weren't worth the answers. The first job 15 minutes later, they were standing outside Elena's workshop, the city stretching before them. The streets glistened from last night's rain, the air thick with the scent of exhaust and fried food from a nearby stall. Elena pulled out a folded map and handed it to Liam. Your first run is simple. You take this package. She held up a small, tightly wrapped envelope and drop it off at a shop on 8th Street. No questions, no detours. You get in, get out. Mateo frowned. What's in it? Elena shot him a look. Did I say to ask questions? Liam took the envelope. It was heavier than expected. He didn't like not knowing what he was carrying, but it was better than stealing, better than begging, better than running for people like Scar. Stay out of trouble, Elena said. You see cops? You walk the other way. You see someone watching you too closely? You keep moving. Liam nodded. Got it. Sofia and Mateo exchanged a glance. Noah tugged at Sofia's sleeve. Can we come? Elena shook her head. Not this time. You two, stay back. Learn the ropes first. Noah pouted, but didn't argue. Liam tucked the envelope into his hoodie. Then he and Mateo stepped into the current of the city, disappearing into the crowd. A city that eats the weak 8th Street was a 20-minute walk, but the journey felt longer. Liam kept his head down, his steps steady, his eyes scanning for trouble. The city had its own rhythm. People moved fast, never stopping, never looking too closely. The homeless were invisible. Kids on the street were just part of the scenery. But Liam had learned to see the dangers. The undercover cops who dressed just a little too clean. The gang scouts who lingered on corners, watching, waiting. The shopkeepers who clenched their jaws when street kids came near, expecting them to steal. They reached their destination, a pawn shop wedged between a liquor store and a closed bakery. The windows were covered in wire mesh, and a faded neon sign flickered overhead. Liam pushed open the door. A bell jingled. Behind the counter stood a man in his 50s, his face lined with exhaustion. He glanced up from a stack of receipts, his eyes narrowing when he saw them. We're not buying. Liam ignored the insult and stepped forward, placing the envelope on the counter. From Elena, the man stared at it for a moment, then sighed. He picked it up, weighing it in his palm before tucking it under the register. Without another word, he reached into a drawer and pulled out a small roll of bills. He slid it across the counter. Liam didn't take it immediately. That's it, the man snorted. What? You expect a medal? Liam pocketed the cash. Get in, get out. He turned to leave, but as he did, he caught sight of something in the glass case behind the counter, a silver dog tag. His stomach twisted. It wasn't Elena's. It wasn't his. But it looked just like the one she had given him the night before. For a split second, an old memory clawed its way to the surface, a hand yanking him back, a voice shouting his name, the sound of tires screeching on wet pavement. He shoved it down. Not now, not here. Mateo had already stepped outside. Liam followed, the bell jingling behind him. They didn't talk until they were 3 blocks away. Then Mateo glanced at him. That was easy. Liam frowned. Too easy, because nothing in this city came without a price. A warning paid in blood. By the time they made it back to Elena's, the sun was higher, burning off the morning chill. Elena was waiting inside, arms crossed. Took you long enough. Liam tossed her the money. She counted it, nodded once. Not bad. You didn't screw it up. Sofia looked relieved. So what now? Elena smirked. Now you do it again tomorrow. Mateo groaned. Noah just looked confused. Is this our job now? Elena's expression softened slightly. For now, kid, Liam knew what she wasn't saying. Until we find something better. Until we figure out what comes next. But that night, just as he was about to drift off to sleep, there was a knock at the door. A sharp, deliberate knock. Elena was up in an instant, motioning for them to stay back. She grabbed her crowbar and moved toward the entrance. Liam tensed. The moment she cracked open the door, a bloodied hand shoved through the gap. A figure stumbled inside, collapsing against the floorboards. Liam's breath caught. It was Reed, one of Scar's guys. His face was battered, his lips split, his eye swollen shut. Elena, he gasped, clutching his ribs. They're coming. Liam's blood ran cold. Who? Elena demanded. Reed coughed, spitting red onto the floor. His voice was barely a whisper. Scar. Reed lay sprawled on the floor, his breathing ragged. Blood smeared across his cheek, mixing with the dirt on his skin. His hands trembled as he clutched his ribs, wincing with every shallow breath. Liam stood frozen, his mind racing. Scar. The name felt like a knife pressed to his throat. They should have known. He wouldn't let it go. Elena crouched beside Reed, pressing 2 fingers to his neck. You're lucky you're not dead. Reed let out a wet chuckle. Not yet. His swollen eye barely opened as he looked up at her. But you're in deep now. Liam stepped forward. What happened? Reed coughed, spitting more blood onto the floor. Scar, he's coming for you. For all of you. His breath hitched. You think he was just gonna let you walk away? You humiliated him. And now he wants to send a message. Elena's jaw tightened. How much time do we have? Reed exhaled slowly. A few hours. Maybe less. Sofia tensed beside Noah, wrapping a protective arm around the boy's small frame. Mateo clenched his fists. Liam felt the weight of their fear pressing against his chest. Running wouldn't work, not this time. Scar had the streets. He had people. If he wanted them dead, it was only a matter of when, not if. Elena stood, wiping her hands on her jeans. All right, her voice was calm, controlled, too controlled. Then we don't wait. Liam narrowed his eyes. What does that mean? Elena turned to face him. Her gaze was sharp, calculating. It means we hit first. A fight that can't be avoided. The room fell into silence. Mateo frowned. You want us to fight Scar? Are you insane? Elena didn't flinch. I want you to survive. Sofia shook her head. Fighting him is suicide. Elena exhaled. You think running is better? Scar owns these streets. He'll find you. And when he does, he won't just hurt you. He'll make an example out of you. A chill ran down Liam's spine. He had seen what Scar did to people who crossed him. A broken arm was mercy. A body in the river was a warning. Liam clenched his jaw. So what's the plan? Elena studied him. We take the fight to him. Hit hard, fast, before he expects it. Mateo let out a disbelieving laugh. You're crazy. Elena's lips curved into a humorless smirk. Maybe. She turned to Liam. You in? Liam didn't answer immediately. He could feel the weight of Sofia's gaze, the unspoken question in Mateo's eyes, the fear in Noah's small, shivering frame. If they fought, they risked everything. If they ran, they lost everything. Liam made his choice. I'm in. Sofia inhaled sharply. Liam, he turned to her. If we don't do this, we'll never be free. A long silence stretched between them. Then Sofia let out a quiet breath. Fine. She turned to Noah. You stay here. The little boy's eyes widened. But no. Sofia's voice was firm but gentle. You stay with Reed. Do you understand? Reluctantly, Noah nodded. Mateo rubbed a hand down his face. I can't believe I'm doing this. But he stepped forward anyway. Elena grinned. Good. Now, let's go end this. The ambush Scar's crew operated out of an abandoned warehouse near the rail yard. The kind of place where no one asked questions about the screams that sometimes came from inside. Elena led the way, moving like a shadow through the back streets. Liam, Sofia, and Mateo followed close behind. By the time they reached the warehouse, night had settled over the city. A few dim streetlights buzzed overhead, casting eerie shadows against the cracked pavement. Elena crouched behind a stack of wooden pallets, peering through the darkness. 2 guys at the entrance, probably more inside. Liam's pulse pounded. This was real. Sofia gripped a rusted pipe she had grabbed on the way. Mateo wiped his sweaty palms on his jeans. Elena turned to them. "We take them out fast. Quiet. No mistakes." Liam nodded. They moved. Elena was first. She slipped behind one of the guards, wrapped an arm around his throat, and dragged him into the shadows. He barely had time to react before his body slumped. Liam and Sofia took the second guard. He was bigger, but they were faster. Sofia swung the pipe into his knee, and as he stumbled, Liam punched him hard across the jaw. He collapsed without a sound. Mateo exhaled. "Holy crap." Elena motioned them forward. "Move." They slipped. Inside the warehouse, a reckoning, the air smelled of rust and oil. Dim overhead lights flickered, casting long, jagged shadows across the concrete floor. Scar was waiting. He stood near the center of the warehouse, arms crossed. 5 of his guys surrounded him. They had been expecting this. Liam's stomach turned to ice. They had walked into a trap. Scar smirked. His face was still bruised from their last encounter. "You've got guts, kid." Liam didn't flinch. "And you've got a problem." Scar chuckled. "Oh, I don't think so." He snapped his fingers. His guys moved. The fight erupted. In an instant, Elena met the first attacker head-on, dodging a punch and driving her knee into his stomach. Mateo swung wildly at another, barely dodging a blow to his ribs. Sofia fought with brutal efficiency, slamming her pipe into a man's side before kicking him back. Liam barely had time to register the movement before Scar was on him. The older boy was faster, stronger. His fist connected with Liam's gut, knocking the air from his lungs. Liam stumbled, vision blurring. Scar grabbed him by the collar. "You should have run." Liam gritted his teeth. "Not this time." He twisted, elbowing Scar in the ribs before slamming his forehead into his nose. Scar cursed, blood spilling down his face. Liam didn't stop. He drove a fist into Scar's stomach. Again. Scar staggered, growling. "You little." Before he could finish, Elena's crowbar slammed into his knee. Scar collapsed. Silence fell over the warehouse. His men were down, some groaning, some unconscious. The fight was over. Liam stood over Scar, breathing hard. His knuckles ached. His ribs screamed in protest. Scar glared up at him, his chest heaving. "Kill me or run, kid, but if you let me live, I'll never stop coming for you." Liam clenched his fists. A choice, but this time, it wasn't hard. He turned away. "You're not worth it," Elena smirked. "Good choice." Sofia pulled Mateo toward the exit. Liam followed, the weight of night settling in his bones. They had won, for now, but the streets never stayed quiet for long. The night air felt heavier as they moved through the empty streets, their footsteps muffled by the damp pavement. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind a deep, aching exhaustion. Liam's knuckles throbbed where he had punched Scar. His ribs ached from the blows he had taken. They had won, but at what cost? Mateo walked with a slight limp, his breathing uneven. Sofia clutched her side, her hoodie torn at the sleeve. Elena led the way, as steady as ever, but even she wasn't invincible. No one spoke. They all knew this wasn't over. Nowhere feels safe. When they reached Elena's workshop, the door was slightly open. Liam froze. Sofia sucked in a sharp breath. "Noah." Elena shoved the door open. Inside, Reed was slumped against the wall, barely conscious. Blood streaked his forehead, and Noah was gone. Sofia's scream was raw. "Where is he?" Reed stirred weakly, his voice hoarse. "They took him." Liam's stomach twisted. "Scar's men." Reed coughed. "They came while you were gone. Said if you wanted the kid back, you'd come to them." Silence. Mateo's face went pale. Sofia backed away, shaking her head, as if trying to force the reality out of existence. Liam's hands curled into fists. Scar was playing his last card, and now Noah was in his hands. "A choice that isn't a choice." Elena knelt beside Reed, checking his injuries. "How many?" "3, Reed muttered. "But they won't be alone for long." Liam's mind was already moving. They couldn't wait. They couldn't plan. Scar had counted on them hesitating. He had counted wrong. Liam met Elena's gaze. "We go now?" She nodded. Sofia was still frozen. "Noah." Liam placed a hand on her shoulder. His voice was steady, even though everything inside him was screaming. "We're getting him back." She swallowed hard. Then she nodded. Elena stood. Then we move. The devil's bargain. They didn't have to wonder where Scar had taken Noah. There was only one place Scar knew they'd come for him. The Hollow. The same place they had once called shelter. The irony wasn't lost on Liam as they moved through the night, slipping between the shadows. Elena had armed them with whatever she could find: a rusted wrench for Mateo, a screwdriver for Sofia, a short metal pipe for Liam. She herself carried the crowbar. The city was quiet, but Liam's heart thundered. When they reached the Hollow, the door was wide open. Scar wanted them to walk in, so they did. Scar stood behind him, a fresh bandage wrapped around his busted knee. His eyes burned with barely restrained fury. 3 of his guys flanked him. The air was thick with tension. Scar smirked. "You really don't know when to quit, do you?" Liam took a step forward. "Let him go." Scar crouched beside Noah, resting a hand on his small shoulder. Noah flinched. "You think I don't see it?" Scar murmured. "You're trying to be something you're not. A hero, a leader, but you're just another street rat, just like me." Liam didn't respond. Scar sighed, almost lazily. "Here's how this goes. You walk away. I keep the kid, train him right." Or Sofia lunged. Scar barely had time to react before she drove the screwdriver into his shoulder. He roared in pain, stumbling back. That was all it took. Chaos exploded. Elena's crowbar swung. Mateo's wrench connected with a jaw. Liam moved without thinking, a fist to the ribs, a knee to the stomach. Sofia ripped Noah free, shoving him behind her. "Run!" The fight was brutal, raw, desperate. Scar recovered fast. Too fast. Before Liam could react, Scar grabbed him by the collar and slammed him into the wall. Pain shot through his back. Scar's voice was a growl. "You think you can beat me?" Liam gasped for breath. "No." Then he drove his knee into Scar's gut. Scar staggered. Liam didn't stop. He grabbed the metal pipe and swung it across Scar's face. The older boy collapsed, blood spilling from his mouth. Silence. Liam stood over him, chest heaving. Scar groaned, struggling to lift himself up, but he couldn't. For the first time, he had lost. Liam gripped the pipe tighter. He could end this. Right here, right now. One swing, one moment. Scar looked up at him, eyes burning with hatred. "Do it." Liam hesitated. Then he let the pipe fall from his hands. Scar's face twisted with something close to disbelief. Liam spoke quietly. "You're not worth it." Scar let out a bitter laugh. "You're a fool." Elena stepped forward. "Maybe, but we're leaving." She turned to Liam. "Time to go." Liam didn't move for a second. Then he exhaled, turning away. Noah grabbed his hand, trembling. Liam squeezed back. They walked out of the Hollow, leaving Scar behind. And this time, they didn't look back. A new beginning. The sun was rising when they reached Elena's workshop. Noah curled up against Sofia, exhausted but safe. Mateo sat on the floor, his head resting against the wall, eyes closed. Elena leaned against the table, watching Liam. "You didn't kill him." Liam exhaled. Killing him wouldn't change anything. She studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. "You did good, kid." Liam wasn't sure if that was true, but for the first time in a long time, he felt free. The sun was barely rising, casting a dull golden glow over the city's rooftops. The streets, usually alive with movement, were still quiet, just a few distant sounds of early morning workers and cars humming in the distance. Liam sat near the door of Elena's workshop, his arms resting on his knees. His body ached from the fight with Scar, but that wasn't what kept him awake. Scar was beaten, Noah was safe, but something about it felt unfinished. The city didn't just let people like them go. It always found a way to pull them back. The scars left behind inside, Noah was curled up on the couch, still asleep. Sofia sat beside him, watching over him like a shield. Mateo was near the heater, absent-mindedly rubbing his bruised wrist. Elena leaned against the workbench, wrapping a fresh bandage around her arm. "You should be sleeping, kid." Liam didn't respond. She sighed, tossing the used gauze into a trash bin. "You did the right thing, you know." Liam exhaled slowly. "It doesn't feel like it." Elena crossed her arms. "You didn't kill Scar. That matters." Liam frowned. "Does it?" Elena nodded. "It means you're still you." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Elena pulled something from her pocket and tossed it to him. A key. Liam caught it, confused. What's this? Elena smirked. The next step, a door to a future Elena, led them across the city just after sunrise. They moved carefully, avoiding familiar streets, keeping their heads down. Sofia held Noah's hand tightly. Mateo walked in silence, his eyes scanning every alleyway. Liam gripped the key in his pocket, uncertain. Finally, Elena stopped in front of a small, run-down apartment building. The paint was peeling, and the windows were streaked with dirt, but it was solid. She gestured to a door on the ground floor. This one's yours. Liam blinked. What? Elena shrugged. It ain't much, but it's better than the streets. Some old friend of mine left it behind. No one's looking for it. No one will bother you here. Sofia's lips parted in shock. You're giving us a place to stay? Elena rolled her eyes. I'm not giving you anything. You're earning it. You keep doing runs, helping me out. I cover the rent. But you make this work. Noah's voice was barely above a whisper. A real place? Elena looked down at him. Yeah, kid. A real place. For a moment, no one moved. Then Liam stepped forward, sliding the key into the lock. The door creaked open. Inside, the apartment was small, just 2 rooms and a tiny kitchen. Dust covered the floors, and the air smelled of old wood and rust. But there were walls, a roof, a chance. Noah ran inside first, touching the cracked walls like they were made of gold. Mateo let out a breathless laugh. Sofia covered her mouth, her eyes shining. Liam swallowed the lump in his throat. This was real. For the first time in forever, they weren't homeless. A warning in the dark that night. The apartment was silent. Sofia and Noah had taken the old mattress in one of the rooms. Mateo had claimed a corner with blankets. Liam sat by the window, watching the streets below. A part of him still felt uneasy. Then, out of the corner of his eye, a shadow moved. Liam tensed. There, across the street, a figure stood beneath the street lamp. Scar's men? No different. The figure was watching, waiting. Then, before Liam could react, they turned and disappeared into the night. Liam's stomach twisted. Scar was gone, but something worse was coming. And this time, it wouldn't be a fight they could win with their fists. The city was never truly quiet. Even at night, it breathed the distant hum of traffic, the occasional siren wailing in the distance, the muffled chatter of people who still had somewhere to be. But in that moment, sitting by the window of their new home, Liam felt something different, a new kind of danger. The figure that had been watching them was gone, but the feeling in Liam's gut remained. Something was coming, something bigger than Scar. Unspoken fears morning came, but the tension from the night before hadn't faded. Liam barely slept, his thoughts replaying the moment over and over. Who was that? What did they want? Sofia noticed. You didn't sleep, she said, sitting beside him at the small, rickety table in the kitchen. Liam shook his head. We're being watched. Her body tensed. Scar's guys. Liam hesitated. I don't think so. Sofia frowned, crossing her arms. Then who? That was the question that wouldn't leave his head. Mateo walked in, stretching. Are we talking about how Liam's been brooding all morning? Or are we pretending everything's fine? Sofia shot him a look, but Liam didn't react. Noah stumbled in behind Mateo, rubbing his eyes sleepily. Are we gonna eat? Liam forced himself to push his paranoia aside. One problem at a time. Yeah, he said. Let's find something. A warning from the streets. They didn't have much. A few canned goods Elena had left, some old crackers and water. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. After eating, Liam and Mateo left the apartment to meet Elena. The city felt different now. Even as they walked the same streets, something about the air had shifted. Liam felt it, eyes on them. They reached the workshop, pushing through the heavy metal door. Elena was already inside, tossing tools into a bag. You're late, she muttered. Liam ignored the comment. We have a problem. Elena looked up, raising an eyebrow. Yeah, welcome to the club. Mateo leaned against the workbench. Someone was watching us last night. Elena stilled. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she zipped up the bag and slung it over her shoulder. Describe him. Liam frowned. Tall, wearing dark clothes. Didn't try to get close, just stood. They're watching. Elena's jaw tightened. Mateo noticed. You know who it was. Elena exhaled. I have a guess. Liam's pulse quickened. Who? She hesitated. Someone you don't want to mess with. Silence stretched between them. Liam took a step forward. Elena. She cut him off. Go home. Liam narrowed his eyes. Not until you tell me what's going on. Elena sighed, rubbing a hand over her face. There are people in this city worse than Scar. Smarter. More dangerous. If one of them is looking at you, it means they want something. Liam clenched his fists. Then we stop them. Elena laughed a dry, humorless sound. Kid, you don't stop people like them. You survive them. Mateo crossed his arms. And if we don't want to just survive? Elena's gaze darkened. Then you better be ready for a fight you can't win. The offer the rest of the day passed in a blur. The feeling of being watched never left. By the time they returned to the apartment, the air was thick with something unspoken. That night, it happened again. A knock at the door. Not a threatening knock. Not like before, but slow, deliberate. Liam exchanged a look with Sofia. Mateo reached for the wrench they had left near the couch. Liam approached the door. Who is it? Silence. Then a voice. Low, calm. Let's talk. Liam hesitated. Then slowly, he opened the door. A man stood there, tall, dressed in a dark coat, his posture relaxed. He looked older than Elena, maybe late 30s. With sharp eyes that missed, a smile that didn't reach them. Liam's instinct screamed at him to run. The man tilted his head slightly. You've been making waves, kid. Liam's voice was steady. Who are you? The man stepped inside like he already belonged there. Sofia tensed, moving protectively in front of Noah. Mateo's grip tightened on the wrench. The man ignored them. He kept his focus on Liam. My name is Vincent. He smiled again. And I have a proposition for you. Liam's heart pounded because deep down, he knew whatever this was, it was bigger than anything they had ever faced before. Vincent stood in the center of their small apartment, too comfortable for someone who had just forced his way inside. He moved like a man who had never feared anything in his life. Liam didn't move, neither did Sofia or Mateo, but the air was thick with tension. Nice place, Vincent said, glancing around. His voice was smooth, almost casual. Better than the streets, huh? Liam hated the way he said that. What do you want? Liam's voice was steady, but his hands curled into fists. Vincent gave a slow smile, calculated, measured. To help you. The weight of power. Sofia scoffed. We don't need your help. Vincent chuckled, shaking his head. That's cute, really, but I think we both know that's not true. Liam didn't react. He wouldn't give this guy the satisfaction. Vincent continued, pacing slowly. I've been watching. You kids, you're smart. You handled Scar better than I expected. He glanced at Liam. And you? You made a choice back there. Could have finished him, but you didn't. He took a step closer. Too close. That tells me something. It tells me you're not just some street rat with a death wish. It tells me, he smiled again, you're someone who wants more. Liam's stomach twisted. He wasn't wrong, but that didn't mean he trusted him. Mateo crossed his arms. And what? You think we owe you something now? Vincent let out a low laugh. Not yet. Liam narrowed his eyes. Then why are you here? The man tilted his head slightly. To offer you a deal. Silence. Sofia shifted uneasily. What kind of deal? Vincent took his time before answering. Scar was a small-time thug. A nobody. But this city? It's run by people who actually know what they're doing. He met Liam's gaze. People like me. Liam felt Sofia tense beside him. Mateo's face went pale. They had heard rumors. Whispers about a man who controlled parts of the city without ever being seen. Some said he had connections. To the police, to business owners, to politicians. Vincent. The name had always been said in quiet voices. And now, he was here. Liam forced himself to breathe. And what do you want from us? Vincent studied him for a moment before answering. I want you to work for me. A deal with the devil. The words hung in the air. Liam felt his pulse in his ears. He had expected something bad, but not this. Mateo let out a hollow laugh. You're joking, right? Vincent's smirk didn't falter. Do I look like I'm joking? Liam clenched his jaw. We're not gang runners. Vincent shrugged. I don't need runners. I need people who can handle problems. And you? He nodded toward Liam. You're a problem solver. Liam didn't move. Sofia's voice was tight. And if we say no? Vincent sighed, rubbing his jaw like he was bored. Look, I could threaten you. I could say that walking away would be a mistake. But we both know you're smarter than that. His eyes darkened. You're alive right now because I let you be. Because I find you useful. Liam's breath hitched. There it was. The unspoken truth. Vincent had already decided their fate. The only thing left was how much they fought it. A line in the sand, Liam's fists clenched. His mind raced through every possible escape, every possible way out. Nothing. They were cornered. He swallowed hard. What do you want us to do? Vincent's smile returned. That's the spirit. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. He handed it to Liam. Liam hesitated, then took it. Vincent adjusted his coat. There's a man named Carter. Owns a club on the east side. He owes me money. A lot of it. Sofia's hands curled into fists. You want us to steal from him? Vincent chuckled. No, I want you to deliver a message. Liam's stomach turned. He already knew what that meant. Vincent leaned in slightly. Make sure he understands that saying no isn't an option. Silence. Liam forced himself to meet Vincent's gaze. And if we refuse? Vincent sighed. Then I'll have to start collecting my debts in other ways. His eyes flicked toward Noah, asleep on the couch. Liam saw red. He moved without thinking. In a heartbeat, he had Vincent pinned against the wall, his arm pressed against the man's throat. If you touch him, Vincent didn't even flinch. He just smiled, cold, amused. You really think that's smart, kid? His voice was barely above a whisper. Liam's breath was heavy. His heart pounded. He wanted to hit him, wanted to break something. But then a knife pressed against Liam's ribs. Vincent's hand barely moved, but the message was clear. You don't get to make threats, Liam, Vincent murmured. Not to me. Liam's grip tightened then, slowly, he let go. Vincent adjusted his coat like nothing had happened. He stepped back, straightening his cuffs. Good talk, he said. Sofia's voice was barely a whisper. You're a monster. Vincent smirked. I'm a businessman. He stepped toward the door. Then, without turning back, he said, you have until tomorrow night. The door closed behind him. The silence left in his wake was suffocating. A choice that isn't a choice. Liam stood frozen. His breath was shaky. His hands trembled. Mateo finally spoke. What the hell are we gonna do? Liam didn't answer because he didn't know. Vincent had made it clear. They weren't just in trouble. They were in a game they couldn't escape. A game where losing meant more than just dying. Liam slowly unfolded the paper Vincent had given him. An address, a name, a deadline. Sofia's voice was quiet. Liam, he looked up at them. At Sofia's fear. At Mateo's barely contained panic. At Noah still asleep, unaware that their world had just changed forever. Liam took a slow breath. Then, voice steady, he said, we do this our way, and this time they wouldn't just survive. They'd take control. The city felt different now. Liam had always known the streets were dangerous, that the wrong choice could mean the end. But this was something else. Vincent wasn't just another scar. He wasn't just some thug trying to survive. He was the kind of man who built the system, the kind who decided who lived and who didn't. And now he had put them in a game where the only way to win was to change the rules. Liam wouldn't let Vincent own them. He wouldn't let Noah grow up in a world where men like that controlled everything. But escaping meant doing the impossible. A plan made of desperation. The note Vincent had left was still in Liam's hand. A name, a location, a deadline. Sofia's voice was sharp. We can't do this. Mateo was pacing, rubbing his hands over his face. If we don't, he'll come after us. After Noah, Sofia clenched her fists. There has to be another way. Liam exhaled. There is. They both turned to him. Mateo frowned. You have a plan? Liam always had a plan, but this one had to be perfect. Step 1. The setup. The name on Vincent's note was Carter, a club owner, a man who owed Vincent. Vincent expected them to walk in to break something, hurt someone, make a scene. Liam had a better idea. Elena, he said. Sofia blinked. What? Liam's jaw tightened. If we're going to fight someone like Vincent, we need someone who knows how he works. Mateo hesitated. You think she'll help? Liam didn't think. He knew. Because no matter how much Elena pretended she didn't care, she had given them a home. And people didn't do that unless they wanted to believe in something. Step 2. The ally Elena wasn't happy to see them. She stood in the doorway of her workshop, arms crossed, eyes dark. I told you to walk away from this. Liam met her gaze. We didn't get a choice. Elena sighed. You never do, kid. Liam didn't have time for hesitation. Vincent wants us to send a message to Carter. If we do it, we're his. If we refuse, he kills us. Elena exhaled sharply. Yeah, that sounds like Vincent. Sofia crossed her arms. We need another option. Elena's jaw tightened. There is no other option. You either play his game or you run. Liam's voice was steady. What if we change the game? Elena raised an eyebrow. Oh, this should be good. Liam stepped forward. Vincent thinks we're weak. He thinks we'll do whatever he says. But Carter, he's afraid of Vincent. He's desperate. If we can convince him that Vincent's power isn't as strong as he thinks, we can make a move. Elena studied him. And how do you plan to do that? Liam smirked. By making sure Vincent doesn't see it coming. Step 3. The execution Carter's club was busy. Music pounded through the walls, bass vibrating through the ground. The bouncer at the front didn't even glance at them. Sofia leaned in. You sure about this? Liam nodded. They weren't going in through the front. Instead, they slipped through an alley, finding the back entrance. Elena had given them the layout. They moved fast, dodging security cameras, slipping through the shadows like ghosts. By the time they reached Carter's office, Liam could hear him yelling at someone on the phone. Mateo glanced at Liam. Now or never. Liam kicked the door open. Step 4. The lie that became the truth. Carter was older, maybe in his 50s, with graying hair and a suit that looked expensive but wrinkled. He jumped when they entered, his phone clattering to the desk. What the Liam stepped forward, voice calm, controlled. Vincent sent us. Carter's face paled. His fingers twitched. Look, I just need more time, Liam smirked. That's what I told him. Carter hesitated. Liam leaned in. Vincent's got too many enemies these days. People who don't like the way he does business. People who'd rather see someone else in charge. Carter swallowed hard. What are you saying? Liam met his eyes. I'm saying you don't have to be afraid of Vincent anymore. Silence. Then Carter let out a slow breath. You're serious? Liam grinned. Dead serious. Step 5. The fall of a king. Vincent never saw it coming. By the time he realized something was wrong, it was too late. Carter wasn't just a club owner, he had connections. And when he realized Vincent's grip on the city wasn't as strong as it seemed, he made a call. Liam didn't know who Carter called, but the next day, Vincent was gone. No one saw him leave. No one knew where he went. One night, he was untouchable. The next, he was a ghost. The end of the beginning. Liam sat on the rooftop of their building, watching the sun rise over the city. They had won. They were free. But freedom didn't feel like he thought it would. Sofia sat beside him. It's over, Liam exhaled. For now. Mateo chuckled behind them. You think someone worse is gonna come after us? Liam didn't answer, because he already knew the truth. The city never stopped. There was always another Vincent, another scar. But this time, they weren't just survivors. They were ready. Noah appeared at the rooftop door, rubbing his eyes. Are we safe? Liam looked at him, at the city below, at the world that had tried to break them. He smiled. Yeah, we are, for now. Hope you enjoyed the story. Comment where you're watching from, leave a like, and subscribe to the channel.